this is the mistake that Ukrainian people make. And like even my students agreed that are adults, they have agreed. If Ukraine were to express their culture to different countries, talk about Ukraine, you know how much more richer and more vivid Ukraine would be by sharing their culture. I was like, no one knew who Ukraine was if it wasn't for the invasion.
Welcome to Storytelling Ukraine, the podcast of amazing stories. Make sure you stay with us till the end, because the best stories are told when the guests are about to leave. We all know that, right?
True.
I'm very happy that today we're joined by Caesar. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
Really good, how are you?
Pretty good. Loving this weather.
Yeah, it's drizzling, it's raining, it's like plus like 6 degrees centigrade. Lovely weather.
Well, it's perfect weather for me because in Texas, we don't get snow.
Okay.
So I'm not used to the snow. So, coming here like, oh, I need a jacket now. I need this now. So I'm not used to that type of stuff. And then like I said, I've never once touched snow before until coming here. So it's new to me.
Okay.
So I love the rain better now.
That's good. That's good to hear because we get that a lot.
Yes, thank
so
God.
You must be happy. Yeah. So before we start, diving into the stories, how did it happen in the first place that you actually have a Ukraine story to share?
Well, I guess let's start off like a little early before like the whole thing blew off in Ukraine. That explains more of why I came to Ukraine.
Course. Yeah.
So I'm already at the age of 39. But the thing is, the one thing that I've always wanted to do with my life was military work, volunteer work, stuff like that. But I never really took the initiative to do it. Yeah, I went a couple of times to apply to be in the Marines. Never really finished that last part to just taking the exam and just doing it. And I regretted that. And a lot of the decisions that I made were usually when I had a girlfriend. Well, do you want me or the military? When we're young, okay, sure. I'll be with you. Well, guess what? Years later, still single, still, And then I hit that age, at age 29, where you can't join the military anymore. Okay. The cutoff age is at 27 for the Marines. I didn't want no other branch, just the Marines.
Okay, very ambitious.
Yeah, so then after I just took on to a career of just, doing chef work. So I became a chef in the U.S., worked at many restaurants, and then started working for Cafe Noce. And then from there, I started seeing on the news what was happening in Ukraine. I never even heard of Ukraine. Never even met a Ukrainian person in my life. I've met Russian people because we have a lot of restaurants in the US that are Russian based. So I knew what Russia was. I didn't know what Ukraine was. So I did my research. I was like, wow, that's a small country going against a big country. And I was like, that's pretty amazing. The good part. Yeah. It's pretty amazing how they're holding their ground against a big old country. And that, that impressed me. I was like, wow, look, a country united. A country's doing whatever they can to stop the aggression of the Russians. And then from there, I started looking around. I was like, you know what? Maybe there's something I can do. Maybe, what can I do? So I wasn't one of those Americans that just got on a plane right away, came over here with no plan. A lot of those guys, failed and ended up going back. So me, I took my time to do my research. Like, okay, since they closed the borders to fly planes into Ukraine, how do I get there? I've never traveled overseas by myself. Never have. It's always been with family, but I've never gone to a country where they don't speak English. So I had to figure out things. And then from there, I talked to my boss. I was like, hey, I'm going to be quitting my job. I'm going to Ukraine because I heard that they're looking for International Legion. That was the first thing that got me, maybe this is my chance to join a military for once. So then I started thinking slowly, so how am I going to raise money for myself just to be safe? I was living in a 3-bedroom house by myself, which I had fully furnished. So little by little, I started selling my personal items. Selling everything down to where I only had 1 bedroom left, which was my room of stuff. So I sold everything. everything in my kitchen, because since I'm a chef, we have kitchen supplies.
Cool.
So I sold everything, bought my plane ticket, told my family, hey, I made my decision. They were telling me, don't do it, this and that. Everyone's going to tell you that.
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, if I were to explain to you why, it would take forever, and you still would tell me no. I can't let any distraction stop me anymore. I can't. I have to do what I feel is right in me. So then I started doing it, and then after that, I flew into Poland. After I got rid of everything, said my goodbyes to my family, and started emailing a couple organizations, seeing about joining them, doing whatever I can. The response for emails was pretty slow, which is understandable because in the beginning, you can't be responding to people right away. You have, you got to take your time, do your research about people, and I understood that. So I was like, what, even if I just wait in the US, I already gave up my job. I already sold everything in my house. I would have to be living with my mom until I get a response. I was like, no, let me just go down there and get things done. This is what Americans do, is we get things, we don't wait. We hate waiting. You know this. So then on top of that, I get on the plane from Texas, and I made sure I got a one-way where it flies me straight out of the US, because due to the stuff that I was carrying, like my body armor, helmet, stuff that I already owned. You gotta understand, coming from Texas, we're a big gun country, body armor, stuff like that. So I made sure I get that, because some states would confiscate certain things. Some states would take away things if you fly in there, and the TSA would check it. So I made sure, so like I said, planned it. So I was like, okay, I gotta make sure I get a one-way, don't fly into New York, because New York will question me about my body armor. They'll probably take my plates away. They'll take this away, which they have done before. Which, it's understandable. You just have to have documentation of why.
Yeah, sure.
I don't. I'm just going to do some help. Then after that, I flew into Amsterdam, and then from there to Poland, and I had booked my hotel room. Hotel, like I said, I planned it. I get the taxi from the airport in Poland, drives me to my hotel room. They had already given my hotel room up to refugees.
Oh, I see.
I was okay with it, but I didn't have a place to stay, because from there I was going to take 2 days in Poland to start figuring out the train or the bus situation, because I couldn't do it in the US because it wasn't giving me much information. So I was there with my backpack, my other bag, and my big old heavy bag with my body around everything, nowhere to go. All hotels were pretty much booked during that time. And this is when I came in June. So that everything was pretty booked. So I was like, cool, I just landed in Poland. I'm gonna be sleeping in the streets. And on top of that, I had talked to my cell phone company to switch it over. They never did. So I had no communication with nobody. I had no hotel room. So it already started off bad for me. I was like, what am I gonna do? I can't talk to my family. I can't talk to anybody because I don't know Polish.
Right.
So I just started I waited on one of the sidewalk streets where they dropped me off at the hotel room. Started asking, do you speak English? People were like, no. And then one guy's like, no, I don't speak English. I was like, you just said you don't speak English. What do you mean you don't speak? So I was like, whatever, get out of here.
Okay.
And I guess I was at the point where I was frustrated. So I went and bought a pack of cigarettes to calm me down. Sure. And I quit smoking cigarettes. I haven't smoked cigarettes in almost a year. That's how stressed I was. No family, no friends, no way to communicate with anybody. Wi-Fi, nothing. Carrying 3 bags that are heavy. Didn't know how to get to the airport if I needed to get to the airport. So it was just going very bad. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just go back to the US. So, this happens a lot with a lot of people that, if things are not planned out properly, which I thought I did, but mistakes do happen.
And you can never be prepared for everything.
Yes.
Because, things come up
yes.
that truly unexpected.
You have to improvise.
Exactly.
So I just stood there smoking cigarettes, went and bought another pack again. Within 2 hours, I had smoked 2 packs of cigarettes. No. That's how much it was hitting me. I was breaking down little by little, but I was like, no. do not fail right now. It's the first day, do not fail. So I just kept on asking people. And then one guy finally spoke English. I was like, hey, can you help me? I will pay you. I just need to get back to the airport. And he was like, why do you need to go back to the airport? I was like, well, I don't have a place to stay. The hotel room happened to give it to people that needed it. I'm just gonna go sleep at the hotel, at the airport, and get a bus ride into Lviv. He was like, oh, well, how much would you pay? Which is understandable. I was like, dude, I'll give you $50, 50 US dollars. And I didn't know the exchange rate, what it was. That's a good amount. So I was like, dude, I'll give you $50. Just, I don't have cell phone service. Can you just take me to the airport? He was like, oh, you need cell phone? Oh. So we grabbed my stuff. We put it in his car. He drove me to a shopping center. He helped me get SIM cards. So I was like, okay, I'm not stressed that much now. And I was like, okay, well, maybe you can just drop me off at the airport. He was like, no, you know what? You're going to Lviv. You're there to help Ukrainian people. You can stay at my house. And I was like, so, you know, as an American, we start thinking about it as like, am I going to get robbed? Am I, you know, what's going to happen? Yeah. And I had a lot of cash and credit cards with me. So
sure.
I had to be careful. Well, good thing is he was Polish, his girlfriend's Ukrainian, and that same day that he offered to let me stay at his house, her grandma had just come from the east where she lost her home. She was in a bunker for 30 days. And they finally pulled the right connections to get her out of Ukraine. So that same day, they had picked her up with me along. And it was just an emotional thing with the granddaughter and the grandmother. You know, they haven't seen each other since that time. So he was like, and I was like, why did you help me? He was like, because of this. Mm-hmm. Because look what she went through. She was living in a bunker. She didn't have weeks worth of food or water. And she finally got the courage to get out because of volunteers. So he was like, this is why. And he even gave me the $50 back. He was like, let me stay there. We got food. I end up finding out that he owns his own business.
Okay.
Which it's like a cannabis business where they sell like oils and all that for vapes and all that. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, what were you doing in that area? Oh, I was in that area looking to open up a second shop. So it worked out good knowing like this and that. And it was just amazing because we ended up becoming friends. So we talk every week. Hey, how's it going? How this and that? And that's rare. That's rare. So yeah, he helped me. He took me to the train stop to get a bus ticket, translated for me. And then we said our goodbyes. And there was another issue at the bus stop. It's right. like issue after, but issue, and then it got resolved. So I was waiting where my ticket was telling me to wait for the bus. I was even there 30 minutes early. Okay. So I'm waiting. I was like, well, the bus is supposed to be here at 11. It's 11:20 now. I've been here for almost an hour waiting for it. So I go to the front desk. Oh, that bus left. It left at 10 o'clock. I was like, what do you mean 10 o'clock? It says 11. So then I was like, okay, when's the next one coming? Well, we have to buy another ticket. I was like, Jesus. I was like, man, you guys just want money right now. So I was cracking up the whole time. Like I was laughing inside. I just didn't want to show them that I was trying to be serious.
Right.
But it was a fun experience for me. I was like, well, why? But inside I'm just cracking. I was like, this is how good stories start becoming.
Yeah.
So then finally it comes, and I've never ridden a bus that's going into another country. So that's another new thing for me. So I get on there, I'm like, okay, cool. I don't think that many people are going to be on there. No, it was super crowded. It was very hot. And like, this was in June when it's hot. Yeah. And in the morning I had my jacket on and I forgot to take it off. So I'm in the bus with my jacket sweating from the inside. Just hot. I'm like, if I take it off now, they're going to see how drenched. I got to keep it on the whole time. And then I remember seeing my ticket says, oh, okay, so it's just a 6-hour bus ride from Warsaw to Lviv. No, it's not. No. So, like I said, if I would have learned Polish or Ukrainian, I think things would have been much easier for me on stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, and on top of that, I didn't know about the curfew.
Right.
Like I said, I didn't do extensive research, so one thing I recommend to people is do your extensive research. Look for curfews, border checks. Every little detail matters to make your trip easier, because how many Americans in the beginning failed and went back? Me, that was organized, still failed a little bit, but still got back on track.
Yeah.
So finally, we get into Lviv. And then the air siren goes off right when we cross into the border. And I waited for 3 hours at the border for them to check. That's normal. I'm okay with that. Yeah. You have to make sure that there's nothing illegal or stuff like that's going in. And yeah. So 3 hours there. And then we finally got into Lviv. And then from there, I had to get an Airbnb. So luckily, I had cell service finally. I had cell service. And then I didn't have Uber at the time, because I usually use a different app in the US when I'm traveling. So she was like, yeah, just download Bolt. I was like, couldn't you have told me this before? Now I'm here and it's about to be 11 o'clock when the curfew starts.
Right.
I was like, what do I do now? So I download Bolt and I tell the guy where I'm at. Again, communication, because I don't know Ukrainian.
Right.
So I'm at the bus station trying to describe what I see. Like, yeah, I'm at the cross the street. There's a red sign. He doesn't speak any English. So I'm trying to communicate in English. It's like, okay, now right here. And then I look at the boat where I want to take a picture where you can't. So I'm like, okay, I'm right here. Okay, I'm in the street. While like there's a military guys on one side, police on this, just looking at me weird, like,
yeah,
who's this weirdo walking the street back and forward, carrying his bags, this and that. And I finally get my boat. He drives me to my Airbnb, and the lady that was supposed to meet me doesn't show up. So, like I said, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
So then I was like, hey, how do I get into the apartment? Doesn't respond for 30 minutes. And I'm already past the curfew time. So I don't know what's going to happen, because like, it's my first day, curfew, the air siren was going off. I don't know if I'm supposed to go to a bunker. I don't know when I'm supposed to do what. So it's like one of those where, what do I do next?
Yeah.
So I'm confused. And she finally responds, oh, this is the keypad code to get in. Oh, this is the code to the key to the door. I was like, why? And I told her, why couldn't you have given this to me when I told you I just got into Lviv?
Right.
I was like, so one thing I will say throughout that whole duration is language barrier. It does affect a lot. Yeah. It does. So right there, I was like, okay, I'm finally in. I'm in the bed. No food. So I got to figure out, okay, well, I haven't ate, because at the bus, I thought I was going to be there on time. I didn't know about the curfew. So there's no markets open, nothing. So I have nothing to eat that whole time. So I wake up early in the morning, and I'm used to markets in the US being open at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I wake up at 7, get out, start walking around, not knowing where I'm at. And where my Airbnb was literally in the city center of Lviv. So the Opera House is right here. My Airbnb is right almost like a block away from it. So I was close to everything. I was like, nothing's open. I'm hungry. Like, it was hurting. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, whatever. I'll go back to bed. I'm still jet lagged a little bit. And finally I wake up. It's like 11 o'clock. I was like, okay, cool. Let me go get something to eat. Start walking around. And then I go to like a pub. It's like a little cider bar. So I go there. So I didn't want to go into somewhere where it's crowded. I didn't want to start my day off in a crowded place by people asking me questions, this and that. Oh, you're American. Oh, let's just avoid that first. So I looked at places. Like, okay, cool. There's nobody in there. I'll go in here first. I'll start off here. And then luckily the guys spoke a little bit of English.
Cool.
So we were talking little by little. And then I was having a couple of drinks. And I asked them, hey guys, where could I go to see about signing up for the International Legion? They said in Kyiv. They helped me with all the information, gave me where the embassy, everything is. It's like, cool. So I packed whatever I needed into a small backpack, bought myself a bus ticket. So I knew how the bus system worked already, a little bit.
Yes.
Little bit. So those mistakes helped me improve all that. So then I go get at the bus station, make sure I get the right time now that I know the curfew. I booked my hotel. I booked 2 just in case in the same hotel.
There we go.
So I was like, you know what? No, if they don't have this one, at least I have this now.
Yeah, you can't be too prepared.
Yes. So yeah, I was like, and then I finally get into Kyiv. Then I get my Bolt, get to the hotel room, and I get the hotel. They're like, you booked 2? I was like, yeah, I only need 1. They're like, why'd you book 2? I was like, because things happen. Just give me this 1. So they gave me the 1, and in the hotel room that they give me, no windows.
Whoa.
No window. It's basically like this room, but it's just wall. So I had no windows looking outside. Couldn't tell what time it was. So I spent a week there. Just, I'm in Kyiv. Why not just spend some time seeing what Kyiv has to offer, stuff like that. And then I went along, walking around, went to some restaurants. And then I learned, little by little, the market's closed early due to the curfew. So I learned little by little. So I started buying little snacks and all that to have in my hotel room. And then finally went to the embassy, talked to a couple people, and they were telling me, oh, no, we're not looking for anybody else. The volunteer thing is shut off.
Okay.
I was like, okay, cool. So I'm like, cool. You should have put this on your website. I even told him, you should have put this on your website. Now, so I'm getting angry with the guy. And he's like, got 2 military guys next to him. I was like, to me, I was like, no. I'm going to tell you what you did wrong. So me thinking like the high, mighty American would always, so I noticed that Americans will tell you what you did wrong when we're at fault too. And I was like, no, what you did wrong was you should have posted it. I sent you over 30 emails. You told me to come, this and that. I did what I was supposed to do. You dropped the ball. And I'm getting mad. And then I see the guards just coming close. I said, you know what? Have a good day. Have a good day. Have a good day. And I walked away like, have a good day. Because when I saw them walking, I was like,
maybe not.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
I'll see you later. So I just spent the rest of the days in Kyiv, going around, going to different restaurants. And I didn't meet no foreigners there.
Okay.
So to me, it was like
mid-June?
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
It's still very early for foreigners, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I've been watching a bunch of TV news on the TV that there's this, there's that. Didn't see any of it. So I was like, you know what? Let me just enjoy a couple of days, because if I do sign up, I won't have this anymore. Let me just enjoy this before I join the military and something happens to me. Let me just get the culture in. Yeah. So I did that. And then I went back to Lviv after that. And when I got back to Lviv, it was 7 p.m. So I made sure I went to the grocery store, bought a bunch of snacks, bought a bunch of instant soups, stuff that I could just throw in the refrigerator just to have ready. So like I said, mistakes helped me improve. And then from there, I just spent the time just, I was like, you know what, let me just take 2 weeks in Lviv. Maybe I could meet some people here, because I've heard a lot of the English language around me. It's just weird for someone to just walk up, hey, you're American, right?
I heard English. Oh.
Yeah. How's it going? So what group do you work? Yeah. So I learned just over the time, that's where a lot of people make mistakes. Just because you see someone speaking English and then you ask them about their organization, they're not going to tell you right away. They have to keep it covered. They need to know who you are first before they start expressing information.
Sure.
So I was like, let me just take my time. Let's just make some friends. So I kept on going to that same cider bar, because it was literally a 5-minute walk. So I kept on going there, started making friends with those guys where we talk now. They've helped me through so many difficult times. So I was just going there, and I started, hearing Americans going to that same spot that I was going to, and I made friends with some Americans after that, and I joined one of their organizations. So we started doing, and the thing is I don't want to give their name out because they ended up doing crooked things.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's not mention the name.
Yeah. So I helped them out. We were doing good things. We were going to the east, delivering medical supplies, delivering equipment. Equipment.
That yes. Everybody needs equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you do in the world without equipment?
Exactly.
Come on.
So yeah, we were doing all that, and then it was just 3 months. And the thing is, my goal was to only be in Ukraine for 6 months, because after that, that's where my funding ends. If I don't control it properly, because once 6 months hits and I'm still there, that means my funding to fly back to the U.S. is gone.
I see.
So I had a plan for all that, but things were going so good with the organization, and after that, like, you know, we were doing so much stuff. We were going back to Lviv, picking up stuff, going here, doing that. We've seen a lot of the places in the east. This was before big destructions were happening. Now, you know, if you think of it now, the places where I've been to, you can't recognize any of the buildings that I would remember. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, things were going good. But something started bothering me about the organization. Like, something just wasn't connecting. I was like, you know, yeah, I'm buying my own food. I'm doing things because I'm not depending on them for this. But these guys are spending money like crazy. So, like, something was just not correct. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time that I just leave. Something's not right. So I left it. And then 2 months later, they were getting prosecuted for stealing supplies, for selling it to other foreigners in different countries to profit from. Whoa. So I left at the right time.
That was a good gut feeling.
Yeah, and the thing is, so then after that, I had joined another organization, and same thing again. So at that time, I made the decision to not do any volunteer work with organizations anymore. So I started to do my own thing to help animals.
Okay.
My thing was, like, where I live, where our city is a no-kill zone. So even if the animal shelters are overpopulated, we do not put them down. We keep them there until they're fostered or they get adopted. So, and the thing is, like, with my family, we always adopt dogs. We never buy. We adopt from the shelter. And that's one thing I was like, you know what? I love animals. And it ended up being where I loved animals more than humans. Because the thing is, like, I tell people, it's like, they're like, why? Animals is just an animal. It's like, what's the one thing that's so happy to see you when you come home? What's the one thing that gives you unconditional love? What's the one thing when you're down where you don't have to worry about arguing back with it? Is an animal. And I was like, this is why I prefer animals than human beings half the time. Yeah, I have a dog here in Ukraine. If it wasn't for her, I'd be going crazy right now because I have no friends or family in Ukraine. So if it wasn't for her, I don't know where I would be. Probably back home or in a ditch. I don't know.
Yeah, I see. So, coming from Texas and now living in Western Ukraine, this must be a big difference. So, yes. Do you have any stories about, like, experiencing these differences? Like, apart from, you know, the curfew and the buses and, you know, all the weird things, what else is very different on, you know, like, day-to-day basic level?
There's a lot of things that I notice that sometimes irritate me a lot, but I have to remember I'm in a different country. So, one thing I tell people, the one thing that makes me very, very mad is customer service. Customer service in Ukraine, especially at restaurants. You know how you have to call the waiter, you have to push a button for the waiter. That's one thing that makes me mad, because in the US, the waiter is going to you every 5 minutes. How are you doing? Do you need more water? Do you need more this and that? Yeah. Because they're working off of tips. That's how they make their living. And coming here, I see the guys on their phones, you know, outside smoking a cigarette, while I'm like, and I have an empty beer bottle in front of me, walking by me, this and that. And I'm like, that's the one thing that I've noticed is different, is customer service. And I know the difference is because they get a pretty good hourly wage compared to what we do in America. They live off of tips. So I got used to that already. We're like, okay, it's whatever. But yeah, it's like, to me, it's like customer service, especially like in the markets, how the ladies are just, doot, doot. No. If I have to help you, I'll help you. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. let's go. Let's go.
The thing is, their salary doesn't really depend on the speed with which they do this, and it's a really hard job. So
I know.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I was like,
they have to save energy, because they have to keep doing this like for 10 hours.
Yeah.
I would do the same, really.
Yeah, and I don't blame them. It's just so when I was in line, so this happened to me one time at one of the markets by my apartment. So I go there and I have like a little bit of things. So she's scanning and then she sees her friend, because this happened after one of the texts in December, the big one that we had. And then she sees her friend next to me. She stops scanning, pulls her phone out and starts showing her pictures of destruction. Yeah, I don't know what they're saying. And I'm right there like, can you scan? I'm hungry.
Okay.
And she looks at me. It's like,
yeah. It's not about you here.
Yeah. So then I say it, and I don't think she understood me, but I was like, must be great that you have your friend's telephone number, but you can't take care of a customer. So
yeah, I see.
And she looks at me like smiling, and then turns back and starts swiping to more pictures. I was like, so then I become the rude person. I was like, hey, scan, let's go. Let's go. And I've never done that to anybody.
I see.
It's just to the point where I was like,
okay,
you have her telephone number. We're in the same city. She heard the destructions. She heard the rockets hit. Let's go. It's in the news. You don't need to show anything. It's in the news. And I start getting like to the point where it's like, how incompetent can you be? We've heard it. It's in the news. Why do you need to show your friend pictures of the destruction when it's on the news? Let's go. So I'm like, I guess I was just having a rough day.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Right. What are some of the things that you would actually take, back home from Ukraine? I mean, things in general, not just like tangible things. What is something that you will miss about Ukraine when you get home?
That's a good question.
If anything.
I've been thinking about it too lately. Like, if I were to leave Ukraine, what would I miss? The big thing would be the architect work. The monuments that y'all have here. That type of stuff. The road in the city center, how that's old stone from the old days. Like stuff like that. Like the thing that I loved the most was the creativity, the architect work that has gone into the city center, like those old buildings. I don't see that in my city. Like, we don't really have much history like that. We do have history, but not like that. And that's what I loved. And the crazy part is, the thing that I tell people, what Ukraine reminds me of is Mexico.
There you go, Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is that?
Well, a lot of things. So you know those shirts that y'all wear, the traditional shirts?
The embroidered shirts.
Mexico has almost the same thing.
Okay.
They have the same thing, but theirs is like the designs actually go to the collar and for the women's right here. Same colors. It's just Mexico uses more brighter colors for the solid one and the flowers and all that on this. And that's what I showed a lot of my students at the school. Look, guys, look at this shirt. I didn't tell them where it's from first. They're like, those are nice Ukrainian shirts. I'm like, just so you know, these are Mexican shirts. So, yeah. And crazy thing is, Mexico shares a little bit of the Ukrainian tradition that people don't really understand. So this is what things that I taught my students. Like, just so you know, a lot of the holidays that y'all celebrate here, they celebrate at the same time, and it's the same thing in Mexico. So, like I said, so as a Spanish teacher here in Ukraine, I do my research to try to fit it in with the same that's here in Ukraine, so they can understand things a little bit better, instead of just saying, okay guys, this is what they do in Mexico. No, if I can find something that resembles the same thing as Ukraine, I teach it, just the different things. And so I taught them too, like a lot of the Spanish words means the same thing in Ukraine. So yeah,
Amazing.
I'll give you like maybe one or two examples. So you know how like the market people will ask you if you want a paquete?
Yeah.
Same word used in Spanish for bag. Paquete means
Paquete.
bag in Spanish.
Okay.
Carta. We say carta for card in Spanish too.
Okay.
Or tarjeta de crédito, but yeah, carta. So like things like that. So that's how I was able to communicate with the people at the market when no, carta. No,
Okay.
no paquete.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's helped me.
Regardless.
But what I would miss the most is, like I said, the architect work. I would love to say the culture, but since no one's taken the time to teach me the culture, I don't want to do my research on a computer that I can do from the US. I want to experience it. So I wish I could take more of the culture and be like, hey mom, you know what I learned about the Ukrainian culture that you won't find on the internet is this. But I've realized, this is the mistake that Ukrainian people make. And like even my students agreed that are adults, they have agreed. If Ukraine were to express their culture to different countries, talk about Ukraine, you know how much more richer and more vivid Ukraine would be by sharing their culture. I was like, no one knew who Ukraine was if it wasn't for the invasion. Everyone knows who the US is due to the things that we've done, due to that we're a culture multi-country, that we invite people from different countries. People know which cultures we have in the US, but no one knows anything about Ukraine. I was like, guys, if you were to advertise Ukraine, talk about their culture, the greatest things, you would have more people visiting Ukraine. You would be a rich country after that. But since you're keeping to yourselves, why should people care if you're not showing the world who you are? And that's why I tell a lot of Ukrainian people, like, you have to express that. You have to tell people, man, back in the day, my grandma used to do this. This is our cultural tradition, stuff like this. I'm like, guys, if you don't share this information, why would other countries care who you are after that? You have to give us, your future, your past. Look, guys, we have built this monument. This monument means. And the crazy thing is, like with my students, I asked them, guys, if you were to be my tour guide, would you know what these statues mean without reading them? No. I was like, guys, this is your culture. I know what they mean now because I've done my research. I've actually gone to the monument and Google translated what it means. I was like, I know what they mean. You should know more about your country than I should. So I think that's where not to talk about the education system, but I think the education system has failed when it comes to like really deep history. But like I said, that's one thing that I wish I could take back with me in America. For me to say that I miss it, I don't when I'm not being taught it.
I see.
And I want to know more about Ukraine. I'm going on almost 2 years here, and I haven't really learned anything unless it's from the internet. So really, no one's really, and I've asked many people, can you please tell me about your culture? Can you tell me what makes your country great? And the excuse that I always get, well, we can't say anything because we're at war. I was like, and I tell them, you're just being lazy. Mm-hmm. You have culture, you have history. You're using the war as an excuse to not express your culture to me. I'm asking you. And so I sometimes have to change my question. What can you tell me about Ukraine before the invasion?
Okay.
So I've learned that I had to change the questioning. Oh, well, this is what we learned in school. It's like, what have you learned from your grandma, your grandparents, your father, your mother? They are the culture. They are the tradition. They should be passing this on to you. Oh, nothing. We just go to the village and pick potatoes. So I was like, okay. You're not helping. So, like I said, that's one thing that I wish if I knew more about Ukraine, mm-hmm. I would be able to express more to my friends in America why it's so great. But I can't. And the thing is, like, I want to say, guys, you should be donating more because look at the future that's being destroyed here, the past, everything. They need this.
Right.
But how do I explain this when people are holding back the culture?
I know how to help them. They need to watch this podcast. Because one of the things that a lot of expats share here is their story of experiencing Ukrainian culture.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to start. That's a good place to start, learning about Ukrainian culture.
If they open up more, and that's the thing is and so a lot of my students agreed too, I think if we would open up more and express our culture and said this, we would be more on the map than on the map because of a war.
Yeah, absolutely. And naturally, this brings me to my, one of the big three questions is, and it's, what is one thing that the whole world gets wrong about Ukraine? Well, one thing is that the whole world doesn't know about Ukraine much, but they know something. So what is one thing, just one, that people get wrong about Ukraine?
So I did a little bit of research on that one. It didn't really give me much. It just kept on talking about how there's corruption and all that. There's corruption everywhere, no matter what. My country's corrupt, not in a very bad way, but we know about it. We're just too busy with crime. So we have a pretty high rate for crime, which is normal. But I guess the one thing that we do get very wrong is we say Ukrainian people are very lazy. That one, I guess I've said it too in the beginning, with the way people move, with the way the waiters. To me, I'm used to someone attending to me, like an entitled person. You take care of me. That's what we're used to in America. You guys here, it's more about, okay, here's your meal, here's your food, more of a cultural thing. We're not here to baby you. We're not here to be your mom and dad. We're not. In America, that's where I've noticed the thing is like, if an American a normal American would come to Ukraine, they were like, oh, look how lazy they are. Look this and that. I get it, but now seeing this in my perspective, I've realized how entitled, how demanding we are in America. It's a very big, I didn't realize how bad it was until being here.
Okay.
It's like, wow. So saying Ukrainian people are lazy, no. We're just entitled in America. Sorry, America, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Yeah, we want people to nurture us at a restaurant. Oh, my water is to this point. Come on, fill it up. That's what we're used to. And here, it's no. We'll get your drink. It just came in here here's this and that. You don't baby each other. So, and then one thing, like to bring up the lazy part in this is like, so I was talking to an American here in Lviv that he's actually made this his home. He actually built his house here.
Okay.
So he said the same thing. Yeah, man, I just really can't stand how lazy. I was like, how long have you been here? He's like, I've been here for 8 years, this and that. I was like, okay, so you know more about the history. But he's not. He talks very down about it a lot. So it's like, to me, I love America, but I do talk down about the things that we're not doing correct. I don't just say Americans are bad people, Americans this and that. I talk about things that we should fix, like the entitlement. We need to fix that. The people expecting the government's going to do everything for them by hand. We need to fix that. You're a grown-up person. Do it yourself. But yeah, so he was telling me that, well, have you ever noticed how when they need to dig a hole in a trench, no, not in a trench, but like for construction works, they hire like 20 to 30 people. And these guys are just smoking, digging a hole, taking a break. I was like, look how lazy or how dumb they are for hiring 30 people. In America, the supervisor would go get a machine, dig that hole, move on to the next project. He was like, they need to learn what it is to work smarter, not harder. And I was like, I would agree maybe 20%, but not the whole thing. Yeah, there are ways, but I've realized the reason why y'all do it here in Ukraine is because there's not much work. There really isn't much work.
True.
If the contractor hires 30 people, that's 30 jobs. That's helping these people get food for their family. In America, we don't care about that. If we can dig the hole without hiring 30 people and just hire that one get a machine, a tractor to do it, this person makes that money and only has to pay for the rental and moves on to the next project. We don't think like that in America. We don't think about, oh, cool, let me just hire 30 people. Even if it takes a week to dig this hole, at least these people are providing food for their family. We don't think like that. So that's a difference that I've noticed here. It is almost like a family culture where if this construction takes me this long, I still have a job. If we finish it in 1 month, guess what? Now I have to look for a job again. So I've noticed that when it comes to the economy, it's not very strong here. So you have to take what you can and you have to pace it out to just be able to take care of your family. In America, we don't care. If it gets the job done, I get a big bonus. I can move on to the next project and I'll hire a new crew after that. I'll hire a new crew after this. So that's the thing that we get wrong. They're not lazy people. They just don't have the benefits that we would have in America. They don't. Why is it that, people say that, but then in America, the older people, like the grandmas and grandpas, they don't have to work because we have a retirement program. You don't have that here. That's why you see the old ladies cleaning the streets. That's why you see the old men shoveling dirt to just keep the streets and the sidewalks clean. You don't have a retirement. So this is why they're working hard. They're not lazy, they're working hard. If they had the system that we had in America, you wouldn't have to work if you hit a certain age anymore. You can just retire and enjoy being with your grandkids and stuff like that. So that's why I tell people, it's like, that's the things that we get wrong. And we know that this country could do better. They just need a little bit of help with it.
Right.
So that's what I've noticed. Is like we get other countries wrong because we live in a country in the US where we're entitled to things. We have the freedom to get help from different governments, get financial aid for school. Other countries really don't.
Right. What about Ukrainians? What is one thing that we Ukrainians get wrong about ourselves? Yeah.
That's a good one.
Everybody gets that question, so...
So what Ukrainians think they get wrong or like...
what is one thing that Ukrainians get wrong about themselves? So, Ukrainians say, oh, we're like this or that, but that's basically not true. Have you noticed anything like that?
I haven't really noticed much, but the one thing that I did notice, let's start off with the beginning.
Okay.
When the invasion happened.
Yeah.
When the country was united for once.
Yeah.
The country stood together and was united. People from the west in Lviv were building candles. Like the trench candles were doing everything. We're doing camel. We're so united. One thing that I heard my friend said, and he's a Ukrainian, oh, I don't like that us Ukrainian people have gone back to doing what we did again and forgotten about the war. It's because we live in Lviv and we're not being affected by it.
Right.
And he said many times, I just don't like that we have given up on ourselves.
I see.
And I could see that. I could see that a lot. And the thing is, like, there's no way to explain. There's no way for a foreigner to explain how that's happening at all. It's just, many people have said that. They don't like how they've just already given up. And they expect other countries to do it for them.
Okay.
And that's a big one where I've noticed it myself where I've actually gotten into fights because of that in the city center. Where I've actually had Ukrainian people come up to me, men mostly, why isn't America doing more for us?
Okay. What a question to be asked in Lviv.
Yeah! And it's
an American volunteer.
So yeah, and the thing is, like, instead of just saying, hey, how's it going? I see you're American. No, they don't even say hi. They just, why isn't America doing more for us? I was like, okay, hold on. Let me call Joe Biden right now. Hey, Joe Biden. And I would do that too in front of them. Hey, Joe Biden, there's a couple of guys here at a bar drinking while the real soldiers are fighting, asking me why I'm... So this is where a lot of my fights would start.
Yeah.
Like I tell people, do not attack me first. get to know me first, and then we could have a proper discussion.
Exactly. Yes.
And so that's one thing that my friend told me. He was like, he just doesn't like how people have just given up on each other here in Ukraine. He wants people to be more united. He was like, the first 3 to 4 months, we were a country. We're not a country anymore. We're getting divided more and more. People are hiding because of mobilization. We're not supplying any more to the front. We're not doing proper funding anymore. We're not united anymore. And that's the one thing he told me he doesn't like, is that the country has just started being divided little by little. I've seen it. I just don't know how to put it in perspective.
Okay.
But I do see that first few months, y'all were a proud country. Y'all were Ukraine 100%. You loved it. People from Lviv that never shot a gun were going to the recruiting stations because they love their country. They love their family. Now they're running from the recruiting stations.
Right. Well, not the same people, obviously.
Yeah, not the same people. Not the same people.
But yeah.
But like I said, that's the one thing that I've heard many times, is where Ukrainian people have said that we've given up on ourselves.
Okay.
And I can see that, and it is kind of sad that, Ukrainian people are saying that we've given up on ourselves. We're dependent on other countries to do it for us now, because we're not. And the thing is, like, that's what makes me sad. That makes me sad. It's like, you shouldn't give up. This is your home. If this happened in the U.S., every person would grab a rifle and go do what they need to protect their home, their family. It's not about the country anymore. It's about their family.
Right.
So that's the one thing that I've noticed. It is that.
Okay. So you've lived for almost 2 years here. A lot of stories, a lot of experiences. So maybe one day you'll write a book about it. So what would be the title?
I've actually had, so it was funny because I've actually was writing a journal. The first day that I flew from the US, I was writing a journal about, I was going to write every single day, which I did. I ended up having my bag stolen that had my journal. Oh. So now it's just mostly me talking on video, audio, stuff like that. I've had 3 titles.
Okay.
One was Never Surrender.
Okay, good one.
The other one is We Are Always Victorious. And it means being victorious. The reason I chose that one is we are always victorious. It doesn't mean the country's victorious, this and that. It's you deep down. What have you done to be victorious for yourself?
Right.
So the thing is, like, I always wanted to write a book saying we are always victorious. You're not just talking about your country. You're talking about what people in person have done for themselves. What have they accomplished for their friends, family, their country? It's not just the whole thing. It's what you. So it's a personal book about me. What have I done to be victorious?
Okay.
The other one was, what was the other one? It was like a really bad one. Okay. We'll leave that one out.
We'll leave that one out. Okay, no problem. Yes, I like the first 2 ones. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. Well, Sheila, thank you so much. Thank
no
you for
problem.
sharing your stories. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure that our listeners did too. Before I say my final words, I'd like you to have something. So this is a badge which says Ukraine's storyteller. So you are officially part of this nice bunch of people who are sharing their stories about Ukraine.
I like this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your
story. No, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you guys for sharing your time with us. Please hit the subscribe button, the follow button, or the like, leave your comment. Please visit our pages on Patreon and buy me a coffee, because we do need your support to keep this project going. And finally, let's make this a world of stories and not of headlines. See you.